We're going to open the February 19th Selectmen's meeting. Open session public meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. We have a 7:10 appointment for the Highway Facilities Superintendent to give us his update. So we have a couple minutes. Well, let's see. Joe is not here this evening. We do have an appointment for hiring Paul O'Coin II as a part-time local building inspector. Did you all read the information?
Yeah.
Comments?
I was just happy he found somebody he'd be comfortable with.
Meg?
Unfortunately, I don't have the job description with me, but as I look at the resume of the person, I see account manager, business development, carpenter, account exec, outside account manager, finish carpenter. I don't see anything in here, maybe I'm missing, that would qualify him for a local building inspector.
I did not see any building inspector experience or any licensure. And
Would you like to get Joe on the phone and ask him your questions? Because I know this needs to move forward.
well, my suggestion was that perhaps the personnel can take a look at it on Wednesday.
Yes, we can. Yep.
Can you advise?
And we can follow up with John on that.
Okay. We'll see how he's doing tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I can like just touch base with him and let him know that, see how he's feeling, if he's available to come or call or.
Or great, yeah, or we could call, we can touch base with them by phone.
Okay. Maybe he could provide more information as far as these questions.
Okay.
If not, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Do you have the job description? I don't have it.
It's in that packet, so right behind the offer letter.
Oh. And this
Yep,
one?
there's two. There's one for each of you.
Thank you.
The advertisement and the job description's in there.
I know he did have trouble having a couple of people come that didn't realize it could be full-time eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the same person for the full-time as the part-time, I don't believe. I don't know whether either of those candidates were, you know, worth having come back as far as just part-time.
Yeah, because I mean, two of the requirements, the minimum requirements, at least 5 years' experience in supervision of building construction or design, or an associate's degree or bachelor's degree in the field of building construction or design. And I don't see these on the
I
resume.
believe he's got significant construction background.
What's that?
I believe he's got significant construction background.
Yeah, I did see construction
And
background.
he's been going through the training for building inspector.
Right, it's just not on here.
No,
Part-time carpenter.
correct. And then that's really
And
it.
Flanagan Custom Carpentry.
So 3 years, and then part-time for 8 years, I don't think equals the 5 years' experience in the supervision of building construction or the degree of building and construction or design. And I don't see any of the ideal candidate will be certified as a local building inspector. I don't see that on here as well. Or anything about construction supervisor's license in good standing with at least 5 years. I don't see that on here as well.
Well, why don't we pass this on to personnel and just get back to us when, you know, if you make any decisions on this?
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have all this? Do you need hard copies? Is it just easier? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Okay. And remind me, Mary, the OSHA safety officer, I thought we were deferring that?
Yep,
till-
you held it until this meeting in particular, but if you
Oh, we
probably
did.
need to hold it.
Not until the chief.
Till we,
is-
till we
You
hire-
actually picked this date, but that's fine. We can hold
Okay.
it until after the fire chief,
Okay,
Full-time fire chief?
or
Or
interim.
even-
Interim is
Okay.
probably
Interim.
fine.
okay. All right, Dave. Come on down.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you again for doing a great job on the roads.
Oh, you're welcome.
Could you swing through my driveway next time?
No,
I didn't think so.
thanks for asking.
Okay, just put it out there.
Have you read the ethics rules?
Nope. Well,
Maybe you could provide a copy?
Okay, so this being the first of this new procedure here, I'm not really sure what we're looking for.
And you're the first one on
I'm
the hot
first one.
seat.
So I'm assuming I submitted a monthly report 1st of February. I hope you all read it. It was somewhat brief. Outlining pretty much day-to-day operations. The concerns I had was with the fire suppression pump, which was replaced in this building. Did come in on budget, so we were okay with that. That was the only really concern I had last month. Everything else, basically building, business as usual. We're doing okay with our snow and ice account so far. Last month was an expensive month, and it looks like this month is shaping up to be expensive as well. But I think we'll be okay.
And you had a little bit of concern about the, I don't know if it was in your report or not, but the library and the-
Yeah, so that's something we need to get together with the library and try to come up with a plan. You know, they want to do something, move forward, but Joe and I don't have the information on how big their expansion is going to be, and we need to have that information in front of us before we can size whether it's a new system or a tight tank.
Right.
So,
thinking you can't take me seriously with this stuff. I mean, I had reached out to Bob about that, and his response was, it's for the tight tank regardless of the expansion, which I think is, I don't know how you can put in a system without knowing.
you have to know the square footage of the building to move forward.
and the area that you'd be using.
Well, that, not only
Obviously.
that enters into it, but also the size of the system is based on the square footage and usage of the building.
So you
Mhm.
can't put one in and then make the building bigger and re-put
Not
another one in.
really. I mean, there's a lot of questions over there.
And there was a date thrown out as far as the library trustees meeting. I don't remember what it was.
February 26th is the next one, I believe. That's a Saturday. I think that's the date.
It's a Saturday?
They
Really?
do
Yeah,
on
they had,
Saturdays.
they had a long-term plan meeting a couple of weeks ago. And he said some of the information was online if we wanted to look at it.
Is it February 26th? I think it's a
Unless something
Wednesday.
has changed, the
No.
plans for the library expansion are all posted on the library website
And
and
that's-
have been forever.
Right, and that's what he said.
Yeah, they've been
Mhm.
there, and the tight tank issue was based on the expansion because the state knew what the expansion was. So Mary Lee Stone is who I would reach out to. She has all the information.
This is a previous library trustee.
Okay.
No,
Former-
the state
Former
DEP.
trustee.
Yes.
Muriel Stone?
Muriel Stone is the person from the Mass DEP that came and met with us and was the one that gave, I don't know the initials, but the stipulations of 1, 2, and
Mhm.
3 as to what we had to follow to get the building back up to,
Code.
get moving towards the public water supply and what needed to be done. And I believe it's all, the plans are still on the website.
Are you thinking you may attend that meeting?
Okay.
Well, or,
Lee?
I mean, I know you're not available because it's, I believe it's early in the, like 5:30 or something.
It's 5:30 on the 26th, yeah.
Yeah.
26th is what? Oh, sorry,
I
Dave.
think it's a Wednesday.
February 26th is a Tuesday. Yeah, no.
It's a Tuesday?
February 26th? Yep.
Okay. And it's at 5:30. I mean, if I'm around, I can go. I just don't know how much help I'd be.
Or should we look at the stuff online? Would that help?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll look at that.
If you look in the email that I sent you from Bob, that kind of has the history of it, he lists where it is,
The
on the
link?
Town of Berlin, yeah, on the Town of Berlin website.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
No other major concerns?
I don't have any.
Anybody
That was
else?
easy.
Easy.
The only thing I would request in the future, should we continue with this, if you do have questions about a monthly report, is that questions get emailed so that we can prepare.
If we know, if you
myself
know what
and
our questions will
Right.
be? Yeah.
Just so that
Yeah.
we have some documentation for
Yeah.
whatever the question may be.
Okay.
Cool.
All right?
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
It's very informal. All right, well, we're going to have another appointment with our fire and EMS chief, but he went home not feeling well today, so either we'll reschedule, or is he around for?
One more meeting. But he couldn't make next week, which is why he switched to this week.
Oh, I thought it was,
So that was it.
I thought that was Tom Galvin that couldn't make
Oh.
tonight, and so they switched.
Oh, I thought the fire chief also separately
Yeah.
could not make it.
He
Okay,
could
Next
make
week.
next week.
well, we could confirm that, I guess, or otherwise, that's it. So we also have an appointment for Keith Susi for an alternate ZBA member, term through 11/30 of 2021. He seemed like he hit it off with the ZBA members when I was at the meeting last week.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And a bill schedule. Here we go. This is for you to sign. And we have a bill schedule for $2,804
Motion to
and
approve.
25, and this is for the street light console purchase and installation.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we also have a bill schedule for $75 for the MMA online advertisement of the RFP for the fire EMS chief services.
Motion to approve.
Are we going to review the advertisement first?
It's already run.
This is
All right.
the RFP.
Oh, okay. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is the memorandum of agreement between the Berlin Fire EMS Department and the Fire Marshal. I wanted to ask you both if you felt as though you had the information that you needed, or the questions have been answered to your satisfaction from KP Law.
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling from Brian is that he does not think that this is a huge deal in any way, shape, or form, which is where the disconnect is coming in. I mean, the salary is based on the budget, so you can write whatever salary you want in there, and it's still based on the budget. So we can say, okay, in the budget is the 67 or whatever, and then the next interim chief handles the overtime in whatever way they see fit.
So it was an hourly, though, for this year's budget, correct?
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure about whether it was salary or hourly that was proposed.
Well, if we indicated in the budget that it's supposed to be hourly, then you have hourly. If we need to split it out in the budget, then we split it out in the budget.
Okay?
Well, here's my concern, is that in the budget that was approved, you had the 40 hours at that rate bringing you to an annual wage of that amount of money, correct? Everyone's in agreement, yep, voted on, good. You go to the next page, and you have overtime. Listed here, amount of hours, which we know that it exceeds, and an annual wage. So if you add that to that, it does not equal what is listed here for the agreement for the position of fire marshal. And also, to me, this is what the annual wage is. It's this amount. You don't count in overtime just because it's there.
Well,
But
she's
that
saying,
doesn't, I'm saying that you can write whatever you want on that memorandum of agreement. But what we've put in on the budget is a wage, and then there is a budget for overtime. That does not mean you use the budget for overtime. It means there's the potential for that much overtime.
And that budget has continually been used as a free checking account for overtime.
By
week
the
upon
old
week.
fire chief. We have a new interim coming in and then a new fire chief.
But the date on this is that it took effect yesterday. So what, because today's the 18th, 19th? Thank you. This took effect, hold please.
the 17th, I think.
Yeah, so this took effect this week. So
Yes,
what do we?
but still, in the last year's budget, you still have, we set a wage, there's a limit to the overtime.
No, I don't agree.
I think there's still confusion.
I don't agree, and that's why I'm not happy with the information or the lack of information. It's specifically vague from town council. You can dance on either side of the information that they're getting. It's a binary question. Is this a legal document? Yes or no? That's it. Yes or no? And if it's yes, then the follow-on question is, how do we get out of it? Because again, this was done without approval. This was done without town council coming back to us saying, hey, are you guys aware of it? I will not agree to this until we have very specific questions. And if our current town council can't give us the information, then we need to go to Liz's group, and there it is, VDH for advice on it. I'm sorry, I am not satisfied with any information that is coming back from them. You ask a very simple question, and the comment about where the information was changed on the agreement, where the only thing I changed with the agreement was that I added the Berlin and Fire EMS where it previously said the town of Berlin. So my question is, did it happen before or after Brian's review? Yes
And who is
or no?
responsible essentially?
Right. Yes
Is it the
or
town
no?
or the fire department?
Well, that's just it, because if it's the town of Berlin, it's very different than Berlin Fire and EMS. So again, yes or no? Binary questions. We're not getting answers back from them.
Do we need to have someone come and talk to us about it? What?
They can come and talk to us, but they're going to dance the same way that they're dancing in email. Will they give better questions because, hello, you're on camera and you have an audience? I don't know. So I make a motion to go to VDH for advice on this. If they come back and say, it is a legal contract, we can't do anything about it, I won't be happy, but at least I'll have an answer.
Right.
Now, I'm not happy and I have no answer.
And I would actually agree. I feel as though I don't have the answers, and I keep asking them in the emails, and then I'm not getting the answers.
You get this.
Have
You
you
get this.
spoken with him on the phone?
Yes.
And you had the same
He-
issue that you think?
No,
you're
I
having on
explained the
phone?
situation, and then he was gonna look into it, and then the emails came.
Can I request that before we rack up money with another lawyer, that you make another phone call and see if he can clarify on the phone?
I could try.
Okay. Outline exactly which questions you don't think you're getting answers for, and speak with him on the phone, because obviously email is not working.
Well,
But
both
if you go
have
to,
not been
I mean,
working.
if you go to the other lawyer, then you're starting over at the beginning with the same situation, and they are more expensive. You're already in the middle of the situation with our primary counsel.
I feel like we haven't gotten any answers, though.
Then I asked to be on the phone with you. Maybe it takes two voices for him to hear
You have
that.
to-
I mean, because you've sent a bunch of questions. I've sent a bunch of questions. You have a bunch of questions. And yet when the response comes back, the response is this big and doesn't answer any of the questions that have been posed before him. It's a simple
Well,
job.
It could very well be that since he wrote the document, he may feel a little defensive, and
Well,
maybe he's
Well, then guess
not
what? He
giving
needs.
clear answers.
Then guess what? He needs to recuse himself. Sorry. Not.
I bet I could put everything together like I did for Brian, send it to Liz, and get an answer the next day.
I mean, we're spending money anyways on this, money that the town should not be spending. And I understand that the fire department said, well, just bill me for the time that I used, that I shouldn't have used, so just bill me.
Well, it's still coming from the same pocket.
It is. It's coming from, thank you, very much. And it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're either paying our current counsel, who's not giving us answers, or we're going to another counsel with the same exact information. Here's your packet, here's the MOA, here's our 15 questions. Can you just put an arrow with an answer at the end of it? It's not a hard ask.
Okay. You made a motion.
I did, and then I babbled.
And the motion was?
To go to VDH for advice on all the questions that we have sent forth to current town council that are not answered. First one being, is this a contract? Is it legally binding? Boom.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, and it's almost 7:30. Is our capital planning group even here?
I saw that,
They're here somewhere.
yeah, I was gonna say, I
Well,
saw individuals.
We can see what else we got here. Why don't we do the final chief search, revised professional services contract? Is that here?
It's tabbed blue and yellow, I think.
Blue and yellow, all right.
So signing on the blue, initialing on the yellow, on 2 copies. So
Okay.
2 sets of signatures, 2
This
sets of
was
initials.
the agreement between MRI to do the fire EMS chief search, the permanent, and their numbers, I believe, were incorrect and have been corrected.
Motion to sign the updated contract.
Seconded.
Trying to find them, but,
It's right here. It's on page 5.
okay. There we go. Yep. So it's a total of 13,500. All right. Motion made and
Seconded.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Boy. 2/19/19. There you go, there's one initial and 2 signatures.
Do you want to do 6? 6 looks quick.
Well, I also had, did you by chance put the ad and the candidate profile in the packet here?
Did you forget to initial?
Oh, I thought I did. Two 1919.
I didn't, but, I mean, I think you still have purview over that, so.
Yeah. I didn't know if there was feedback on the ad from the board or the candidate profile.
This is for the fire?
Yes.
Well, I have 2 questions. One being on the front page, where it says the fire chief, thank you, in the town of Berlin is a strong chief. Well, later on in the night, we're going to talk about an article to have the folks in town be presented with facts and let them decide to move away from strong chief to weak chief. So I'm not quite sure until we have that vote that you can put that in the overview and operational information, and that in the description as well, 3rd paragraph down, fire chief is appointed by the board and is a strong chief. So we would need to potentially take those out.
Well, it's true until it's voted otherwise.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I'm thinking
If you
when,
know it's gonna be on the warrant, you could say pending annual town meeting
right, well,
warrant article, if that's going there. So then that is disclosed, because I think that you would have a situation where the employee would feel like they were not advised of what was really coming along.
and I can more than likely let Robert Craig know that this is pending if he wants to delete it or just leave it, because that's what it is at this point, but I can bring it to his attention if you'd like. The strong chief.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about the article and a couple more, I mean, can we wait and circle back to this?
I don't know why not. That was both of the items had that?
Yes,
Okay.
here, right in the front. Strong chief,
Yeah,
Yep.
it's both.
and
Third
the ad,
paragraph of the
3rd paragraph
advertisement.
right there.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we come back to this one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, well, it's a little after 7:30. Capital planning is here. Come on down.
So wanna just come up?
You signed this one first.
Yes.
Are you
Oh,
working on the other one?
oh, yeah, no, I stopped. Sorry.
It's okay. Hi. Hi. You want to introduce your group here, Dave?
Sure. I'm Dave Westerling, for the folks at home, Chair of the Capital Planning Committee. This is John Solera. Ricky Smith. And Anna Crane.
Hi. All right. And you're here to take a look at the capital articles with us, correct?
Yes, and we do have a final version of
Okay.
of the plan that we brought in hard copy for you.
I tried to run it off today and
Yeah.
could not figure out how to get it all on one page.
There you go.
John
Well,
is
it's
an
not on one
expert.
page, but
Okay.
there's,
No, I meant like, yeah, you got it all on one page. Justifications was, that column was
Yeah.
in another page. I tried numerous ways and then gave up and hoped you were bringing some.
And do you have copy, how many copies do you have? Do you have some copies for the audience?
I do. Let's see.
We can pass them out, if somebody's interested, we can pass them out in
Yeah, I don't have,
a couple.
there's about 10 copies, so, sorry I don't have more, but I didn't know how many to make.
Basically, in white background are the requests as they were received. And on the black and white copies, they're white. On the other copies, the yellow is a shaded copy on the black and white
Yeah.
copies. Those are the changes that we made. And basically, what we did most often was not to reject any of the requests, but instead to move them into the next following year. So,
They didn't come out very well, but,
and the summaries are really on the last page. I guess for discussion, I'll use the bar charts.
yeah, I think that makes sense.
And then, the top bar chart on the top left is the original request and the adjusted capital value. So the blue, or the darker color, is the request that we received, and the value there is $1,480,000. Our target was $1 million, the same capital spending as last year. And even at $1 million last year, we had to cut some of the operating budgets for the Finance Committee. I'm the kind of the ex officio officer of this committee, because when we set up the bylaw for the capital planning, we had one member of the Finance Committee that would serve on both committees. And that's in order to provide some correlation between the capital budget and the operating budget. So last year, we had to adjust the operating budget down and made some cuts to some of the operating budgets, some of the pay increases and things like that. So this year, our target was still $1 million in capital, and we think we've got enough additional income this year with new growth and some new buildings that have come online that are now paying taxes, the restaurants, things like that. So we think we're okay at this capital spending level. So you can see that in 2020, we took that $1,480,000 and we ended up at just over $1 million. $1,084,300. So basically, if you can, these are at the same scale, so you can see that in the following year, what we had went from $652,000 to a little over $1 million. So you can see on those two bar charts, you can see what we did by postponing some of the capital this year. We elevated next year's budget up to close to $1 million. And then, because of the way that it worked this year, a lot of the department heads didn't put in changes for the years 2022, 2023, and 2024. We were looking for some increases for those years, where department heads would plan for those years. So, because we have a 5-year rolling plan now, and the idea we'd like to continue next year is we have a form that we use that's special to our committee, where we actually change the form each year and actually put those years in, and we're asking the department heads to fill out, even though it's 5 years in advance, at least tell us what you think you might need. And so that's some of these costs in 2023 and 2024 are, fire engines or police cars or dump trucks. Those larger items especially are the ones we want to get into the 5-year plan, because we want to even this out as best we can. It can grow with our town growth, but we really don't want bumps in it. If we do have some bumps in it, like a very large article that the treasurer can finance, that's okay too. We can borrow money. We elected not to do that this year, and we put the fire truck in this year's capital plan. Whereas we could have borrowed money for it, and there's some other things that we moved to next year. And you could decide as a board that we want to do it this year, and we could borrow the money. But if we wait till next year, we don't have to borrow the money. So that's where we are with this. And then the second bar chart shows capital spending by department. And then the third one is, last year, which was our first year, 2019 versus 2000, fiscal year 2000 spending. And that's just a comparison of, and as we build up a 5-year program, we'll be able to take some of the past years, kind of develop some data as to where we're going, where department spending is going. We can have some pie charts. That's an initial bar chart showing but maybe that should be a pie chart. Here's where we're spending most of our capital funds.
So, one of the things I would add is, I think the real capital-intensive departments are fire and safety, and you can see that, as well as highway and public building and the school. So, I think fire and the public safety has, they know that they have equipment that has a certain life, so they've got a fairly decent handle on pushing or looking out. I think what the other departments we want to do is get people to start thinking about, what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years. And I know that's not easy for some.
Well, the life cycle of things.
Yeah.
The life cycle of a certain kind of truck or
exactly,
whatever.
Exactly.
And we did have that, I think, previously. Were you able to use any of that information?
Yes, a lot of that got put in.
Okay.
Well, a lot of it was the department heads bringing it to this format.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was an institutional memory that was, and that was good.
No, it was good. It was good. But I think if you look at the chart, you can see that, I think people focused on the first, 2 years,
years,
and then anything after that, it's kind of like, best guess.
Yeah.
So, so that's a goal, I think, is to get people to think going out. And I know that's not easy, particularly in a town that's growing and things are changing, et cetera, et cetera. But it's good to start, as I said, thinking about longer term things and how do we plug them in, even if it's just, put something in there. We change every year.
Right, you could push it out if it's not quite ready to be replaced.
It gets updated every year. So, again, the idea is that's kind of a mindset thing. Start thinking about it.
One of the questions I do have is where things were pushed out, did you go back to the department heads and talk to them about their priorities to make sure the things that were pushed out were the things that they would push out rather than the things that you decided to push out?
Yes, after we did, about 2 weeks ago, we did a preliminary one. I think we sent it to you. And after that preliminary one was out, we went and visited with Council on Aging and Highway Department. Sometimes I didn't talk, the department head wasn't there, but I talked to one of the employees or one of the lieutenants. And so I said, please pass this along. Here's what we're doing this year. And I gave them a copy of the draft that we had. And most were saying, well, we really never cut anything out of the budget. We just moved it back. And that was our process this year. And they seemed to be happy with that. In some cases, they were relieved because there was a contentious article or something that they really weren't ready for. But if it's in the plan for next year, then everyone knows about it, and there'll be, it'll be more, people will be more acceptable of it, I think, if it's in the plan. So that's what we're asking them. It's really important to put those future years, get them in the plan. Even if the bar chart is really high one year, get it in there so that everyone knows about it, and then we can see how it's going to be procured. We can maybe decide to borrow money for it or whatever. And we'll try to avoid that. Both FinCom and us trying to avoid a 2.5 override. So we want to definitely stay below that line, if you will.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that when the funds are spent, that the departments are the ones that are prioritizing which things are important to them, because I think
Yes.
last year that maybe got lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Yeah. This year, we made it a point of going back to the departments after the preliminary one was out and saying, here's what we had to do. And in most cases, it wasn't a big problem. Matter of fact, they were sort of relieved that, and they were relieved that it wasn't denied, but it was just moved, and they're happy with that. So that seems to work. And who knows what next year it may relieve itself, or they may need two of them or something. I don't know, but at least we're meeting that target, and I think that's the important part for us this year.
And Council on Aging was amenable to the van.
Yes, Holly her big issue was the computer and getting those records so that she can justify a van, because the records now are kind of soft. Is the best way to describe it. But with the computer, she'll be recording all of the information on rides and where they're going and mileage and all of that. She's trying to get she's great, really. She's trying to get a handle on the Council on Aging processes and things like that. She's just started, so.
Yeah.
But we're more than happy to help her, and she really liked having that computer system. It's a software system that is targeted just for Council on Aging.
So one question that I had was the four-wheel drive for the building inspector. The selectmen said no. The Energy Committee said no more adding to the fleet. So you had two no's, so I'm kind of curious as to why this $40,000 car shows back up when there was zero approval to have it on it.
Yeah, it was a request we got. We talked about it.
We didn't know that there was any objection.
There were two objections. Energy Committee said
No, I
no
hear it.
adding to
I
the
hear that
fleet.
now.
So that's adding to the fleet. So to me, that's got to come off.
Yeah. The building inspector, I believe he's using his own car.
Yes.
And
And so did all the previous building
So did
inspectors
all-
use their own car.
He's a officer of the town is how we think of it. It's one of the most important jobs is to maintain those codes on those apartments. Right now, codes on those apartments. Those apartments, they have to be built to code, and it just seems as though if he's using his personal car, he's dealing with lots of money and lots of scheduling problems, and he's going to be demanded to be there, be professional, and have everything with him.
He's there now with his own car.
With his own
And there
car.
were two objections to this car.
We did actually discuss all those items that you,
Correct.
when
And
he
he
came
was
in.
here. He
Yeah.
was here, and we specifically told him no car. And he went back and he redid his budget and took out the car. So I'm just kind of shocked that the car is now showing back up on your capital plan.
Well,
For next year. It's not this year.
It doesn't matter.
It's not this year.
It doesn't matter, G. Energy Committee said no adding to the fleet.
Energy Committee did not specifically say no adding to the fleet. It's just we need to be careful and make appropriate decisions in that area, and if we are going to add to the fleet, it should be a green vehicle. So I think that is misstated. However, I don't think it hurts to keep that on the capital plan potentially for next year, which is also what we said, because we said that this could be revisited at a future date.
Well, let's step back a little bit. So capital planning is a group that's advisory to the FinCom and the Selectmen, correct?
Right.
So you can advise us, but we make the decision?
You make the decision.
Right.
That's what we did with it. We moved it to next year because we heard that it wasn't there was some
Right.
feeling that it shouldn't be this year.
And I think if he was going to bring it back next year, though, he would fill out another form. and-
He has to.
Yes, but
And
I mean, I
look at
don't
it
think
again.
it's necessary to even have it on the plan, just
I
because,
think
I mean, he can still
Point of
bring
a
it
plan
back.
is to keep track of the things that people are potentially requesting, is it not?
Yes, it's more or less for our benefit. Because we may not all be here next year, but at least it had been discussed. It's like it wouldn't be new next year, in other words.
Well, that's what I'm
So
saying.
there's some institutional memory of it, you know, but I hear what you're saying. It's one of those things, there's gonna be some discourse, but on the other hand, we needed to cut. We cut that.
I think you should cut it right off the
Cut
plan.
it right off the
Yeah.
plan.
And
Cut it when you
he
move
can
it.
bring it back next
move
year
it.
as a new item.
He could do that,
Yeah.
yeah. He's gonna be
Why is
required
that
to bring
any
it back.
different than any other item
Because
that's on
we
there?
put things on a plan and it's there for a couple of years, people get used to seeing it, it's coming.
Yeah.
This
yeah,
this isn't
Yeah.
one of those things necessarily.
Yeah. Well,
But-
that's,
So you've heard us.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. Hear what you're saying. We're working on it. It's our second year. It's not perfect. Next year, by the way, in my letter that I sent, there were 5 things, and one of them was that next year, if we have a town administrator, the process, we have DOR guidelines that we use
Right.
for capital planning. And so in the DOR guidelines, the process for processing these requests is different when there's a town administrator. And I mentioned in the letter that we're going to look at those if we have a town administrator. And it involves more, I think, input from the selectmen early on, because the town administrator then funnels those before they come to the capital planning committee.
Yeah.
Well, so Dave, you specifically opposed me adding a line that I thought the selectmen wanted that would say whether or not they approved or disapproved of a capital request. And that's what they did with the building inspector's vehicle. But you don't want that feedback.
No, our form didn't have that. I think received by,
Yeah,
but using approved by, I think the department has got a feeling that it was approved. But it, reviewed is fine, but the form that we passed out didn't have that on it. But with the town administrator, there'll be a place for the town administrator to sign it as received. And so I'm sure he's gonna share that with you, okay?
Maybe it should go to capital planning first and
That's
then
what-
come to us.
That's the way,
And then
that's the way it reads
we
now.
can say, no, it shouldn't be in the capital plan, or yes, or.
The idea was to give the Board of Selectmen a little bit heads up on things, rather than having a rogue department head or something. A little more of this, if you will, serves the town well.
Right.
I mean, this is good for us.
Yeah.
Okay? So, and we should be doing, I think with the town administrator, if we get a town administrator, we'd be really in favor of that, because it kind of will make this process much easier. And I think it'll give the department heads a little comfort that they're having someone look at this and before it gets to us. I think that should work fine.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. It's kind of, right now, there's been kind of a mad scramble, because there's stuff coming in, some stuff's been approved by different committees, what exactly are we putting in this plan here? So that would make sense if we had it all initially plugged together, and then had whatever committees are responsible review it. And that way you can make yays or nays, whatever. It's easier to do.
Did you have any comments, or Rich, did you want to add anything?
I thought that we were dealing with, as you had pointed out earlier, whatever request came in, we weren't making a judgment about whether or not they should be included. We were just trying to include them and to see what effect it would have on the overall plan, not to make any judgment. That we don't even think of that as our job.
So would that be the selectman's job, is to make a judgment?
Yeah, this now is your plan. You can modify it or whatever. It becomes public after tonight, because the early ones were distributed mostly among the finance committee and yourselves, and now it's available to the public in general. And
So the Council on Aging van is not recommended?
it's not recommended.
It's not in this year's plan?
2021, no.
It's in 2021, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Because I know we've had people hearing that it's not in the capital plan for this year, and some of them are upset.
Yeah. That's, so we just bought a van a few years ago, and it's not perfect. It's older, it needs repair, is the comment on our spreadsheet. So it needs repair.
Also have a lot of drivers who aren't comfortable driving.
Are comfortable driving.
Something that big.
So.
I think the long-term plan is to get something smaller so that you have more drivers that can.
Yeah, and there are probably some trips that don't require a wheelchair van. They could just, maybe a sedan and this van would be accommodated, I don't know. But I think it needs some flushing out a little bit. And I think Holly's more or less in tune with that. But it's certainly, if needed, I think we should discuss this and make sure that what we're providing is adequate. And I think with this cost program that she has, she'll be able to track these things and we'll get a little better feel for what kind of vehicle. And I think it should be upgraded energy-wise. It should be gasoline, electrical powered rather than gasoline powered.
That was.
If that's possible.
the one that's on there.
Yeah, so that, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Same with all our vehicles, so. And the only other thing to talk about is a little bit about the schools. We've left, in this spreadsheet, you'll see we had a 5-year plan from the schools last year, and then they had some capital items this year. They had a study of the buildings for $40,000, and they had a repair of a cistern for $12,000. We decided to leave them in the 5-year plan, and we would like to see them. It's our largest asset. It's almost $10 million worth of building, and we're leasing it for $1 a year. So we would like to kind of track that in our plan, if we can, because we need a handle on, even if they're going to invoice us for it, we need to know how much that's going to be. And then we want to see if the work's been done, like the air conditioning access that wasn't done. We would like to see that done. And by tracking it in the plan, the town then has a way of looking at the school and maintaining it over the 20-year period. They're only paying $1 a year, and we just want them to maintain it.
Right.
And so by tracking it, we can put it in italics. It won't come up at town meeting, but we as a capital planning committee will be tracking it, and I think that'll serve the town well.
Is that how did you discuss this with Bob?
A little bit on the phone.
Okay.
But Buzz Harris, our chair of the finance committee, and myself are going to meet with Bob. Okay. And kind of go, it's our first year on this, but that's what we're thinking, is that we should have some kind of a tracking mechanism for capital items at the school, just to keep us more or less in the loop. So anything more than $50,000, according to the agreement, will be the responsibility of the town. So in any case, another reason for having it in our plan.
But the items that you mentioned, are they 50,000 or more?
No, it was 40,000 for the
Building
study,
existing, yep.
and 12,000 for the repairing a cistern.
Right here.
Okay, so but together.
52.
Yeah.
52, but I think it has to be any item that's 50,000 or more.
Right.
So like the air conditioning access.
And I think that was an issue because the timing for when they were able to fix that wasn't going to be able to happen.
Was in the summertime, yeah.
And it for some reason or other, which I'm sure Bob will let you know.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So he's planning to do it this summer, which means he has to give us the money back.
Right.
And then we have to appropriate it again. And whether we have to do that at town meeting, I'm not sure. We may have to.
I think so.
Have something at town meeting.
And I think that he said if he asked for it again, it would be less money, most likely.
I think it's going to be 85 or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's good.
All right. Well, I guess
All right.
you've heard what we had to say.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Is this the capital plan then that will be in the annual town report? Or are you going to adjust it?
So the town report is for 2017, 2018 rather. So that's already been sent in, sent to the end of January. So this will be in next year's town report.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll have to remove that vehicle, right?
I think you should.
Do we have
Yeah.
to remove the vehicle or not?
No, this is it as far as we're concerned. And that's, in other words,
Well, maybe you need to take a vote amongst yourselves.
Okay.
whatever. Yeah.
I mean,
At town meeting, if we probably have some kind of a mailing or an information, not a mailing, but an informational thing. I don't know whether that warrant, well, we can talk about that later, whether the warrant for an independent mailing a town meeting.
Well, we will actually, did you put that warrant in, the article in?
I didn't. I
Okay.
sent it, but I,
That was put in last week, the one
it
that
was,
you
okay.
sent. Yeah.
All right.
All right, I didn't see
Well, that would be for
included
next
on that.
year, in any case.
We
On the-
talked about this last week,
Yeah.
that it was
Okay.
gonna go in.
Yeah. So that would be, then this would be, that would be part of that mailing, is that they would get, every townsperson would get a copy of this.
Okay.
That's the goal, anyway. But right now, we'll make it available on the web, through the town clerk.
Anything else from the board?
Nope, said my piece.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dennis.
Me?
Yeah.
He's like, no.
I got a list. You might want to stay for this.
Routine stuff. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is Benderson, believe it or not.
Is it?
Yeah, all the billing and stuff.
Boy.
Where do you want to start? Is there a contract I have to sign?
Says
For
tax
conservation?
taking, ATM, Tolman, health insurance, Highland Commons
I don't know,
invoice.
what are you signing?
I looked at the form she attached, and there was no place for either of us to sign.
You don't have to sign it, it's actually the accountant, so that's
Oh, okay,
not
so
on your part of the
that's not
agenda.
on the
So,
list.
but it is it your job or June's to make sure
No.
there is money?
It's the
June.
accountant. It's
The
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
part of the
okay.
contract.
All right.
Take that off my
Contract.
list.
All right.
The other issue that involves a lot of money is the Benderson
Yes.
billing. And like I told Chris, when I looked at the contract, it was pretty confusing when we got to this date.
Yep.
Either 12/31 of 98, so it'd be 18. And then there was a second part that talked about 20.
Yes.
Did you clear it up? with-
I spoke to Jed this afternoon, and I don't know if I'm clear on it still, Dennis, but he said that the public safety number would apply
The jump
for
to
the
the 565?
2018. He said something about whichever is greater. Does that make sense to you? You know,
It's
I'm
the
ready to give
56
give you the phone number
So
and
that's
let
the
you call him.
565 is the higher number.
Right, plus
Yeah.
CPI. I added CPI because it doesn't say the first year the big one comes in that you don't do the CPI.
Right.
Um,
And then the, this year for the mitigation money, it would be the occupancy that has happened in 2018, or that is for this last year, for 2018. It would be, let me read my notes.
You've got two figures there. One is 120,000 more than last year's plus cost of living. No occupancy permits were issued up there for the entire year. And the only thing that went away actually was that.
But the square footage is, so the square footage is still the same?
It's still the same. They didn't hit their 4.25, which the way number one reads is if they don't hit it by December 31st of 2018, the full public safety money is owed. And that's the 65?
But then there was another line that said 2020.
Correct, number two. And it kind of mixed in with the, what we call the mitigation money that was $2 million. And we had a special deal where it was paid over with interest over a period of time, but that's been completely fulfilled.
Right.
So the only thing left forever, technically, with the
Is the
public
public
safety
safety
is
money.
the 565, or plus the CPI, which was, I believe, 2 point something.
Well, I'm just giving you his version of what, he thought. That doesn't mean that's
The
what we
final.
have to do. So,
I can give him a call directly if you want, but
if you want to, and then tell him, this is what I was gonna do. And,
yeah, because we're in a tight schedule to get this money into town meeting.
It's
That's
2.5.
2.5, yeah.
so, I'm just gonna give you this because I'm not using this. That is his number,
Alrighty,
and,
add to the
you can
file.
let us know.
The third item is, as you know, we had a group of people, a committee, I call them, that we got together for tax titles.
Mm-hmm.
And it included Tim, I think you were there. Was Eloise there? The highway supervisor
She did
was
come
there,
in late, yeah.
superintendent.
And
And
Walter.
Timmy from the planning board. And we reviewed all the taxes that are in tax title custody. And in most towns, in some cities, the treasurer is by default the custodian of anything that's given to the town by the land court.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, at town meeting, give it to the selectmen or conservation, or we could hold an auction. And because we lean towards conservation, we have always talked about conserving it or talking to the planning board to see if the sale of a small or even non-valuable parcel would lead to possible large development. Looking at you went through it, so you understand what we were doing. So I thought it might be nice to talk to the selectmen, seeing some of them we recommend to give to you for a couple of reasons. One is, at the end of Dudley Road, there's 5 parcels that the Hermit put together. And it's a long story, but all 5 put together could be a buildable lot. It could be used for affordable housing. But we gave 2 out of the 5 to allow highway to turn around at the end of a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
So the other ones are properties that would like to keep as possibly buildable but have a conservation restriction on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I believe it's the top part yeah, I can give you the handout here. And I don't want to take forever, because I know you're got a lot going on here, but for town meeting, I'll have a copy of every lot that we have, including the ones that conservation wants directly. And also, I've given you a copy of the ones tonight that we'd like to give to the selectmen at the town meeting. Marlborough Road and Gates Pond Road are 2 potentially buildable lots, but we decided to put a conservation restriction on it. It doesn't mean that's what we're gonna do with them, but that's what the group recommended to come to the selectmen with. And I talked about the 2 off Dudley Road for just giving it for the use by highway and make it part of the road or whatever you have to do. And then there's one more up off Ball Hill Road. It's 1.85 acres, but there's a pond in the middle of it, and it, by most accounts, is not developable. And the reason we want to give it to the selectmen is we have been approached, and we can't direct any of this stuff to any individual. It has to be either put up for auction, or you have to put an RFP out if there's something you want to do. And an example of that was the last town meeting. We gave you the land across from Jermaine's because they wanted to swap property with the selectmen. And once it's in conservation, you can't do things like that. It's locked up tight. So this is one where it could go up for auction. There's a couple of abutters that might compete with each other, but with the conservation restriction, it would never be buildable. It would have to be used for conservation purposes. So that's why those 5 items hopefully are heading your way if you choose to accept them.
Okay.
Most of the other ones, there's one exception, and there's only one that we actually targeted below for conservation to stop development. It was a small piece of land, but all the abutters could add lots to their property, and that, you know, that was a decision of the group. The rest of them are either non-perkable, underwater, or in the case of Baker Road, which I think are the oldest ones we've had under custodian, they've failed perks multiple times. There's a drop off, there's ledge. Hog Swamp might not even exist. The Sawyer Hill Hog Swamp, there's one that's land of low value that's not on here that we were going to put on. Hog Swamp, so much of it is landlocked and underwater. We've been giving all those parcels to conservation just kind of automatically. Just if you want to go swimming there, you can. But, so that's what we have.
So these 5 here, you would give to us, and we would put them up for sale.
Well, 3 of them would, but the conservation said the selectmen have to put the conservation restrictions on, not them. So I'm just going by what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 2 would just be you accepting them and just letting highway turn around on them, use them for whatever they want.
Okay. So
It does take away, well, it takes a little bit away from the total acreage that the 5 lots added up, but it really wouldn't prevent you from putting some kind of either affordable housing. One of the problems with getting rid of these lots is we still have that Central Mass planning request to save property that's buildable to possibly donate for Habitat for Humanity or some kind of program that the selectmen could do to build houses on as affordable housing.
Regardless, this is the first step we have to go through, no matter what we do.
Right, right. Once it's in conservation, you can't pull it out without an act of God, pretty much, in the State House to give it to that group. And that's why the 2 Marlboro Road ones, we'd like to be able to sell them as buildable or give them to that type of thing if it comes along. You know, we really don't have a housing authority, so it kind of makes it a little difficult. But that's basically what these 2 articles are going to do.
Okay.
And I do have a few other items that have to do with property, but the one that's keeps coming back and haunting us, if you don't have any questions on this, or
I don't think so, do you?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
is Tolman property. And as you know, I'm not on a butter, but I am kind of looking at it every day from my house. So I've assigned the new assistant treasurer to be in charge of that particular property. I don't know how much it helps, but I had Chris up there. We took a tour of the property. It's been a while, but we were ready to be given the property, and the former select boards twice said, stop, we don't want it. There's a question of contamination from an oil spill, which many of us believe has washed away by now, and also possible chemicals that are used in the normal process of making flowers bigger. There was some pretty heavy-duty stuff in the old days, including arsenic, and cyanide, sorry. The problem we have now is the person who owns it isn't going to fix it up. There's call it $158,000 owed on it. I had 2 professional quotes to come in and look for asbestos and see what it would take to tear down the quote-unquote residential part of it, which is technically a potting shed that somebody lived in, and the town said, hey, that must be a house. So over the course of years, there were 4 other apartments put in the building, all illegal. And there's quite a bit of mess in the back that requires cleanup. The estimated cost of taking the building down by both a local person, no names mentioned, and 2 professional house tear-downers
Okay.
is $30,000. That was 2 years ago. And then another 40 to 60 to clean up the back part, which Chris had the pleasure of walking through. And it just went on and on and on and on. Little to no salvage. There's a lot of metal down there, but you know, the market's not that great these days. So the town's looking at a couple of scenarios. Leave it like it is, which, you know, at some point, somebody's got to take it, clean it up, and move on. We're trying to keep the taxpayers from doing that, but, you know, the longer we wait, it's not going to get any better. The place is kind of caving in now. It's gone beyond when we first inspected it a couple of years ago when we had the new fire chief. So we'd like to see some kind of movement, if at all possible. The court's ready to give it to us. There's 2 parcels. One is across the street by the railroad. Some members of the Conservation Commission unofficially would like to see it obtained for a future bike path.
Not conservation as a whole, some members of conservation, just to clarify.
Right, it's not official from them. We have, these are the 2. That's the Pullman properties. So this is a quick overview of how it could happen. If the town was given the property could be tested for any contaminants.
Which would cost?
Well, anywhere between 10 to 15 to 30,000, depending on what kind of test that you want and how thorough.
Okay.
There's a lot of old buildings up there. That's the problem. It's not this little corner, this little oil spill that happened. It's the whole property would pretty much have to have test onto it. But there are some laws that exempt some of the town from any of the hazmat stuff they might find. And I'd have our attorney get more specific about how that would work. The other thing is you have the right to give the property back to the land court, back to the owner, if you so choose. So you could take it, test it, and if it was clear, move forward. But you're still talking about, you know, that $100,000 or less. Some people snicker at the cost, but, you know, that's what we have for official quotes. And have a potentially buildable lot.
But didn't you say he owed 158 in back taxes?
That's correct. That keeps growing. I'm getting 16% every day.
Why would we give it back if he owes money?
If there was potential hazmat cleanup,
Because it
that costs
cost
100,
us
200,
more
sorry.
to clean it up
Yeah.
than
Right,
To do anything?
That 158 will cost you $450 by the time you're done.
exactly. So there are some potential abutters that would like to get it, but they don't want to pay anything for it. I've had offers of $1, but I can't wheel and deal with people. It's against the rules, against the law. So something has to be done. We're making this new board aware of it. If you want to delay it forever, that, you know, that's your prerogative. But something has to be done. And it scares me a little bit because behind that, and we have the Wheeler Dam to deal with.
Right.
It's long-term off, but it's not looking too good. You'll know more after Thursday's meeting.
Right.
The Bonazzoli property. Medical benefits.
Oh.
Little by little, our brokers are falling by the wayside.
Well, we had an email from
And-
Kevin
and,
Kevin
NFP.
at NFP. Do we want to have him come in, or?
I think you do, because we need to prove to a couple of parties that the treasurer does know what he's doing with benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Chris has heard this recommendation from me at a meeting to possibly go to the Berlin-Boylston district to get over that $100 hump, possibly with Boylston. They, in the past, have said no. They only pay 63 or 64% of the benefits. We pick up 75. So right away you have a cost for Boylston if they go to the region. The other thing is the region plan looks exactly like what we've been proposing to get to where we can start saving money. And talking to the consultants, the more I think about it, it's probably money well spent. Because even though it's been knocked down, it's not $1 million a year anymore, because now we're about half of that, 500,000 or 600,000, because of the schools leaving. But it creates a problem for us because we become an even smaller group.
Right.
And the rates to even join a small group or a big buying thing like Framingham or, you know, Marlboro, isn't going to save us a whole lot of money because most of them don't have that $75,000 cutoff that Maya has for large claims. So unfortunately, I can't tell you what this year's increase or decrease is going to be because Maya won't release them. It's a policy of MMA until they know that we're not soliciting bids for changes this year.
Ooh.
So I can tell you that the range is many members are going to get a -7. They're going to go down 7% from last year. The highest increase is 4 or 6, somewhere in that range. And Berlin is hovering around 0, maybe 1%. So it's a little bit better than the 6% Fallon increase that was touted in a memo that went around for NFP for Marlboro, which has, you know, hundreds of employees, maybe 1,000.
So your proposal is?
Go with a consultant and not make the change this year. One of the recommendations in here, you've heard from me before too, is try to save money over here to talk about a retiree plan for employees. So, you know, that's my recommendation. And I've had 3 of the consultants. The most impressive one, in my opinion, was the Marsh McClellan one, the woman that worked for the lottery and the GIC and all that stuff. Although the other one is pretty energetic, and he'd like to, you met both of them. The third one won't return my calls. I hear she's retiring, so.
Done. There
You
go.
know, see you later. I don't chase people after 2 or 3 tries.
Okay.
So, and we're talking about $10,000 a year. And they could come back and talk to you about an official contract or whatever, but that's the route I'd go.
We didn't put anything in the budget for that, did we?
You haven't yet.
Okay, so
No.
we would need to address that.
Right.
If we
So,
were going to do this next year.
yeah, and let them, you know, planning the retirement benefit does take some thinking because you have to know who qualifies. You want to eliminate retro. You don't want to give it to people that are already retired. You might want people to work here a minimum of 10 years before they qualify for it. You know, you have to have some kind of cost savings. The negative will be people that retire before they're 65 in police, and we don't need teachers anymore with the change, but you know, you retire at 55, you're eating half of a $2,500 a month benefit that would pick up 50% of. The 65, then you're picking up half of a $400 a month cost because then Obama and the gang or Trump pick up the tab through Medicare. So that's my recommendation.
Okay.
So stay as is and then go to consultant next year.
Right. Because
Yeah, I don't think we have any other choices at this point. I think we need
No.
to
you
have
know,
insurance.
the timing, and it does take a little bit of work. We can keep an eye on Obamacare, see if that Cadillac tax gets bounced down the road again, which most people are predicting. And do it right. I was very impressed by the woman that came in from Marsh McClellan.
So we go with Maya again this year. We put in the budget for the consultants.
Yep, and then I'll let you know what the rate is.
Can
And I can tell you,
keep track of the timeline for us when we need to do,
right, right.
you know, have them come in, discuss it.
I can have her come back in and talk about how the contract would work, because they're flexible with the money,
Yeah.
you know, and see if I can put it in my budget or your, you know, wherever you want to put it.
Okay.
All righty?
All right, did we cover everything?
I think that's it.
All
I tried
right.
to talk fast.
You did
Okay.
You're all
okay.
yawning.
No,
No.
you did okay. Thanks, Dennis.
All right.
Thanks.
thank
Oh, I
you.
just want to pass this over. That came from a member of Conservation. It's an old memo from, I believe, our attorney that pretty much reads the way the recommended article that I gave you reads. But it's just for your, you know, review and see if you want to change it before town meeting.
Okay.
So how soon do we have to make a decision on the Tolman property?
What's that?
How soon do we have to make any type of decision on the Tolman property?
You don't have to. You can let it sit there forever. I'm not being funny.
No, I get it, I
The
get
only
it.
thing that we might want to move forward on, and it depends on your opinion of the bike trail, if it would ever happen or not.
Would they sell
is-
just the part of it?
to see if we can get the
Just
across
one
the
piece
street.
across the street.
But
yeah.
I still want to remind you that I don't remember where the old gas tank was.
Right.
And Chris saw the little, there's a cement, half wooden building that goes, it looks like it goes with Pam Mallett's house, but it doesn't. It goes with the railroad property. And when I first moved there, I know they had a gas, just like you'd go to, BJ's.
Yep.
And it got removed. And I just can't remember where it was. If it was on, I'd hate to have it be on the town property.
Correct.
Would have to hunt that down. That's the only negative. Otherwise, we could possibly take that now, and there's no environmental hazards other than if you consider a railroad. Some people do, with the asbestos or whatever it was. Not the asbestos, the oils and stuff that were in the
railroad ties.
railroad ties that are still there, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creosote.
Oh, we have them all
Creosote,
over.
thanks.
We have them all over the town. No
Yeah.
worries, the railroad ties.
So that's the only negatives.
All right.
Okay.
It's
Other
all-
than that, have a good night.
All right.
Thanks, Mr. Dennis.
Yep.
All right. Have we gotten ourselves down to
4A.
4A, interim chief search, finalists and scheduling interviews? I asked that you bring the list of candidates that you were interested in moving forward. Do each of you want to share? You want me to share?
I'll start. I recommend that we go with Jim Kincannon and Jamie's last name that I can't pronounce.
Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, both are in the system, they understand
Agreed.
what's going on, so.
Okay. And I had the same two candidates also. I was also considering the retired fire chief from Northborough. However, depending on how the two of you feel about that,
Nope.
I just thought maybe it was a good idea as far as experience, and it would be a third candidate to interview.
Nope.
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 Okay. Do I hear a motion? And then we can have some discussion or
Okay.
input from the audience.
Yeah, I make a motion to move forward with Jim Kincannon and Jamie Default for the interim position.
Desautels.
Second.
Desautels.
Thank you.
Desautels. Okay, Desautels.
I have
What she
trouble
said.
saying that one myself.
Jamie, what Tricia said last name, as interim candidates.
Second.
Okay. Is there anything else the board wants to share? Why they're good candidates? I think because they are from internal, I'm hoping they,
These
know
are
what the
both
issues.
non-controversial.
Mhm.
Either one would be a fine choice. They're very different stylistically, but either one would be acceptable.
Okay.
Agreed. I think it would be difficult to bring somebody in from the total outside, realizing what's going on with issues that we're currently encountering with the fire department, to have them walk. I mean, you can tell it in an interview, but you walk into it and go, oh, yeah, no, sorry, I'm out. Where these two gentlemen are in there, and they know. So there's, should be no shock and awe as they go through in that interim capacity.
Yeah, for me, it's more
Agreed.
timing. We need somebody in there now.
Agreed.
Yep. All right. Do you mind if I ask if there's any comments, questions from the public?
Nope, go right ahead.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I wanted to ask a question that you talk about a weak chief and a
Strong.
firm chief.
Mhm.
What are you referring to when you say that exactly?
It's the description of that the chief holds. So there's really two basic differences for a strong chief and weak chief. So strong chief, if you decide to terminate them, you have to do so for just cause and allow a hearing. Where a weak chief, like any Massachusetts employee, is an employee at will that you can remove. A strong chief also has the ability to hire and fire personnel within the department. A weak chief would only seek the guidance and the input from the selectmen when they bring a candidate forward to say, I'm thinking about hiring Tommy as firefighter extraordinaire. I'm thinking about removing Sally, really bad person, never should have been on the force, just listen to it. So that's really your main distinction, is power.
It's two Mass
And
General
how
laws.
is this?
Correct, there are
how
two
you-
Mass General laws.
And how, as you a selectman, which way are you leaning?
It's not up to us to lean. The current position is strong chief, and so
Okay,
it
so I'm
will.
curious, okay.
Right, so there's an article that I'm proposing to go on the May meeting for the town to decide if they choose to stay with strong chief or if they wish to move back to weak chief.
Which was
Oh,
decided
that was-
actually
Yeah.
just a little
That was a
over
very
2
good
years
explanation,
ago.
thank you.
You're welcome.
A little over 2 years ago, we went to strong chief.
Yes.
Can I just say something about the two candidates? That I think because the existing chief is leaving fairly soon, that it would be good if they had, either one of them had some time to spend with that chief before he left.
Yes.
Agreed.
I think we're intending to do that. And so is the fire chief. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think we'll talk about, we need to schedule when we're going to interview them.
We also need to determine the scheduling, the interview questions as well.
Yes. You had sent out some.
Oh,
that
I
you
had sent
thought
out a
of.
bunch.
I think
Yep.
we also had,
Yours. You had edited it, did you not? Or is it just Peg still?
no, they were pegs.
Oh, okay, then that's, you have that.
Those were pegs.
Okay.
There were pegs, and are there any that we would use from the old interim search as well? I didn't bring those.
We could. Why, would one of you like to take a look at them and then make a recommendation and?
The old ones?
No,
just
just up from them all. I
Oh.
think we could stick with like maybe 10 questions or something tops. Let's limit Peg.
You're killing me, Chris. You're killing me.
Good grief.
You're gonna get a good sense of the two individuals.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They're very different.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to do that, Peg?
Would
Just
I
come
like
up
to
with
do
your
what?
top 10 questions and.
You betcha.
Is that all right with you?
When do you need them back by?
She can send them to us and.
Yesterday.
Not a problem. No, seriously, when do you want them back by? Today's
When are we interviewing?
That's the question. That's the next question.
Because that's when we want them back by.
Well, so realistically, if you want any time with the chief, it needs to be next week because we have a whopping 4 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Do you want to schedule a meeting before then and do the interviews before then sometime this week? Is that possible?
Do you have Friday off, Peg?
I never have Friday off. I just
mean,
work
working
at
from
home.
Well, I'm sorry, that's
Yeah.
what I meant.
I do work, yeah, I
Or
can work at
Saturday.
home.
We could potentially even do this in the evening again.
We'd have to do it, if we have to post a meeting,
48
then you need
hours,
to do it
yeah.
either
Thursday
Thursday after 8:30 or Friday
or Saturday.
or Saturday. You free? You good?
Yeah, if it's Friday, just let me know and I'll have to check what I have for meetings and jiggle as possible. I mean, obviously, I'd prefer Saturday. I'd have to move stuff around there as well, but this needs to be done.
Why don't we do like Saturday at 10 in the morning?
It's fine if they're available.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll have questions back to you, what's today, Tuesday? I'll have questions back to you by tomorrow night.
Okay.
Do you want me to schedule, or do you want to
Could-
schedule?
If you can reach out to them.
I can reach out to them. You want them Saturday 10 and 10:30?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mhm.
that sounds good.
Casual dress, there's no need to dress up for an interview. We know them, they're not blind candidates.
All right.
So do we need to talk about the full-time search at all, since time is chugging away for that?
Well, we talked about, we did the contract.
The profile, the
And
community profile, if you were,
Right, the contract, the ad, the community, or the candidate profile.
which you just wanted to hold until after you had a
Right.
discussion.
Yeah.
Well, the only comment and question that I had is that I want to be sure that the committee for the fire chief for the full-time understands that when you have a question, it should be posed to the entire board and not one. One does not speak for three. One does not approve for three. So I ask you that if there is communication to be done, that it is done to all of us and not just to one.
Not to just one selectman is what
That
you're
is
saying.
correct. That
That's
has always been the
100%.
way that it
Yeah.
is, because you want to avoid any one of us.
Well understood, yeah.
Yes, so, no, from going forward, because I know that there was an incident where there was opposed to one specific selectman with questions and directions, and questions as to whether a firefighter should be brought in to help with direction, that needs to come to the board for approval, not one.
Okay.
Questions? You're so cute.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just a quick question. When you guys are gonna be interviewing, is it going to be open like this, or is it closed?
No, but
So
Open.
everyone
On
can
Saturday?
come
Yes.
and watch
we've
the-
announced
It
the
has to be,
finalists,
yes.
Mhm.
and it'll be open. And
Is the peanut gallery
are you
coming?
available?
I'm available.
Are you Saturday morning?
Or we can run the camera for you.
What was the time?
10?
10 and
10.
10:30. I won't be here.
I need to have coffee in the morning.
I will
first.
bring coffee.
No, I just need to have time to have it before I come.
Yes, you need to have coffee before you come.
All right. Was there any other questions that we did not
Is interviewing
answer?
this Saturday?
Yes, if the candidates are available, interviewing will be this Saturday, 10 and 10:30. Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I'm good at this.
I'm still sitting over here. I'm not moving into that middle chair, I can tell you right now.
All right. Then we're going to move on to the town administrator job description review. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Skip over mine. Oh, no, you didn't. There B. Oh,
Thank you,
no,
Mara.
sorry.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
There we go. Were you pleased with the job description? Did you have any changes, suggestions, comments, questions?
No, I don't know what I did with it. No.
I actually didn't think I had anything. I thought it was very good. Oh, there was a,
Typo?
yeah.
Shocking.
Do you have the right one?
I don't know.
That's the one. That's it.
Thanks. It's another path.
Where is the typo?
It's
A parenthesis on B2, last line, as contract administrator, and then it does this.
Oh, get rid of it?
yeah, I guess so. There isn't,
There's not a
There's
start,
not another
there's not
one.
a front one.
Okay. Send it back to MRI?
send it on to MRI after we approve it.
Okay.
That'd be,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
that's
because
fine.
they didn't send it to us, right? Beth Stores
Correct.
wrote it.
Yeah, I'm good.
So do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. I'm assuming they will go over that and.
And give us feedback? Yeah.
Jiggle
We
is needed.
specifically say that, it's not ironclad, but that you
Right.
would like their feedback.
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
make sure it's adequate.
Seconded.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And you have this, correct? You have,
Yeah, I do.
all right. All righty. Moving on, the annual town meeting warrant
Yes.
article review.
Yep.
This This is questions. Was that yours? No, yeah, those might be yours, but I just kind of beefed them up. Did you see that?
No.
Okay.
All right, I'll take this.
Okay.
Yeah, you did, right? You did change them a little bit.
Yeah, just a little
Yeah,
bit.
she did. She moved them around.
Boofed them up,
So.
beep, beep, boofed them up, beefed them up. Where are we in this folder?
So 10?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, give them a chance to talk a little bit about each question. Pick the ones that,
All right,
and you
got
know,
it.
if, I mean, we could post the meeting for like 15 minutes earlier, just to make sure we've got the questions that we all agree on
9:45.
Saturday morning. You want to do that?
Yeah.
That's fine.
So like 9:45? All right. Do we all have the draft of the articles?
No.
Well, did you want to talk about mine?
I mean,
Sure.
there's nothing new other than I have to throw all the regular
Stuff
stuff
in.
in.
Yeah.
And I'll take just a rough crack at ordering it a little bit, just the way it's traditionally been, not that it has to stay that way. And then, maybe you want to look at it, I'll send it to you right away. You guys can look at
After you
it.
do that?
Yep, and then think about that for next week, voting it next week to send to town council.
Yeah.
Unless there's any capital stuff that you're taking on or off, or
Right.
the van is still, oh, the van's in there, but lined out.
Right.
So I guess the van's out, yeah.
I think, I was just gonna ask, is there any of the articles that
That's,
need to be
I'll
in
make
the
sure.
warrant that
I
aren't?
guess I'd have to
Okay.
make sure it jives.
thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, because I'm not sure it
Mhm.
is.
Well, they didn't just handed it out. I've been
Yeah.
waiting
Oh,
for it for
yeah.
a while, so.
I know, I'm not sure.
But yep.
Just looking.
You
I
got
can
a
do
copy of
that.
that too, correct?
I did.
Okay. I mean, I know that the last minute things can be done as far as, you know, the usuals.
You have control over the warrant, so you can
Right.
change anything.
No, I
you
mean,
want.
but the usual things that you were gonna
Oh, yeah.
insert, I mean,
There's nothing controversial about
no,
it, the same
no, no.
things.
I was just asking the board if they had anything that they wanted to make sure was in, or taken out, or,
No, the only one that I have is to, as I've mentioned several times and mentioned here again tonight, that back when there needed to be one overseer of fire and EMS, you needed that one person to join the departments. And the list of questions and opportunities from MRI to do, that was complete, that is done. But now, at this point in time, we have a responsibility to go back to the town and present information to them about moving away from strong chief and back to weak chief. There have been issues with budgets that don't seem to be taken care of. There have been issues with multiple people who have been relieved of duty over the past 3 years. And there are other personnel issues that we have little control over. We just basically sit and say, okay, because we can't do anything more. And I'm sure that people are thinking, well, just wait for the town administrator. Well, guess what? If it's a strong chief, the town administrator can't do anything either. They're in the same position that we are. But I think we owe it to the town to let them decide. This is their town, and they need to decide if they want to keep it as a strong chief statute, which basically limits the selectmen to 0 power and 0 oversight of this department, or you go back to or move to a weak chief, where I'm sure somebody's going to say, yeah, but you don't have the capacity and you don't have the knowledge to hire a firefighter or move somebody up and promote somebody. And you know what? And that's a valid point. But my response is this. If you come to me as fire chief person and say, I have Tommy, and I'm going to hire Tommy, and here's Tommy's qualifications, and here's Tommy's, and here's the job description. it's a match. But I'd like you to sit in on the interview, and I'd like you just to hear, see if you can pick up anything. I'm thinking that the board would probably be like, yeah, okay. Same as if the chief comes and says, hey, Tommy's not working out, and I'm thinking that we need to get rid of Tommy. So same thing, here's all the issues with it. You know, here's my justification. Could you just come and listen? I'm thinking that the board would probably say, sure, we're going to agree. It is not my intention to get into the proverbial shorts of the fire department. They know how to handle that best. That is their role. That is what they went to school for. That is what they are trained for. My issue is that there is zero oversight and that there is zero communication, that there is items that have gone on that should not have. That I think if we had a weak chief, that could have been stopped and that could have been discussed. So to me, I feel strongly that we owe it to the town to let them go back and vote. And if they want to keep strong chief, then you know what? That settles every discussion and every complaint that comes forward. You have your opportunity to change it. If you change it, great. And if you don't, well, that's just as great. But you leave it to the town, just like you left it to the town to move it to strong chief. Now is the time to do it, not when, you know, Tommy Fire Chief is in place, and then 2 years from now we come back out and say, oh, well, we need to change it. You make the change now before the chief is on board. That's my justification for getting this article before the town in May.
I think 2 weeks ago we sat here and decided not to do this. I think this has come up 3 times already when we've decided not to do this. I think that the fire department is a target for politics, which has been demonstrated adequately in the last several meetings. I think that we need to let the fire department do their job.
But the politics are supposed to be not
an issue.
As adamant when you have a strong chief. Am I correct?
If they are doing something that you don't like, then you fire them for cause. I think you're hamstringing our hiring process by doing this. I think you don't get as good a candidates when you do this, but you're going to do what you want because you always do. So please feel free, put this on the warrant and we can talk about it there. However, do not put the summary on that you have, because those are supposed to be neutral and just say what the article does.
Okay.
You have a question?
I guess one of the questions that I have is that as an employer, the town, everybody's an employee at will, except for if you work for the fire department.
Do we not fire people? We fire people for cause. We do not just randomly fire people.
Right, but
you give them that label, but we still have to have cause when we fire people.
Yes, and typically we do, and most employers do. But there are people that may come in, a new town administrator, a new head of the highway department, that sees some issues in, you know, yeah, they're gonna work with them, but some people also bring their own people. And there may be not a reason for letting go of somebody. And it's unfortunate that that happens sometimes, but in the grand scheme of things, that's real life, and that's what happens. And that's what most places, why employees are you're an employee at will unless you have a contract. And typically most employers want to do the right thing by letting people go for just cause. Absolutely. But it's difficult when people are being treated much differently in one group than another group, and working for the town and seeing this happening with the town it's tough. It's tough to see it happening when there's inconsistencies.
Well, the last couple of weeks we've also had some new things that have come up, and I would say that the old adage of not having any politics with a strong chief seems
It's
to have
just the
gone out the
opposite.
window
It's just the
lately,
opposite.
because
Mhm.
everything that's been done has just riled people up.
With a fire chief that's out the door in 2 weeks.
And you know what's really unfortunate is, I've seen this happen before with superintendents of school. They do things
It's hard,
that
yeah.
that the school committee doesn't want them to do, gives raises to certain people before they leave, and there's nothing that can be done, you know, without permission, and, you know, shame on them. But, you know, I'd hope that this wouldn't happen with our present fire chief.
No, and obviously, you know, we're going to do everything in our power to work with MRI to make sure that we get the best candidate. I mean, I'm a firm believer it is not the description of strong chief versus weak chief. It is the person who sits in the chair
Yeah.
of strong chief or weak chief. So I just want to add, you know, a little bit of a safety net to the town. And again, it's not us three that it's deciding. This, you know, hopefully will go on the town report or into the warrants and the articles, and the people of the town can stand up and say their piece and go, yep, I agree, no, I don't, show of hands, raise of voice, it's over, it's done, it's voted on that night. And then, you know, maybe this conversation never happens again, or maybe it's moved, and then in a year, I stand back up and say, you know what, we righted the ship. All those issues and concerns that people had in the town are gone, So you know what? Do you want to move back, or do you want to stay for however long the contract is for the new chief? Your choice, but there have been far too many times that I have been out and people have come up to me and talked to me about this, and I hear the chatter, and there's nothing that the three of us can do except to put this out and let the people of the town truly
As I
decide.
said, I move that you put it on the warrant,
All right?
just because I'm tired of hearing about it.
Can I say something? I
Sure.
think, you're saying that the people of the town, you need to hear what they have to say, but I think it's really important. You have a largely volunteer fire department.
Mhm.
I think you should go to the fire department and ask them and see what they say. Whether they want to work for a strong chief or whether they don't. Because they're volunteers, and there are call requirements,
Mhm.
even for volunteers. And if you don't have people showing up for calls, they can't be kept on the department because they can't be depended on to show up. They can't be depended on to show up at 2 o'clock in the morning, then why should they stay on the department?
And that's a valid point, and
And
that's,
I think when you're dealing with volunteers and people that are required to be on call and not paid for being on call, you need to speak with them and ask them whether they would prefer to work for a strong chief or a
Right.
weak chief. Because the people that are, I find the people that are talking about this are not necessarily volunteering or have volunteered on the fire department.
And they won't get to speak at town meeting because half of them don't live here.
Right.
And they can't speak.
and
They
that's,
can't.
and that's what I was going to counter you with, is that unfortunately, I have tried to reach out to
I
people.
understand that.
And it's a chain of command, and they will not buck the system. They will not sit here. They will not be seen publicly with me to talk to me for fear that someone's gonna walk by and go, oh, did you see Sally firefighter is
Well,
standing there with Peg?
I think-
So,
I
You
think
had
could
a group
ask
right
this
in the back of the
question.
room, though. You
But
had
I
a
think
group
you-
right in the back of the room that all said,
But
We
their
prefer
chief
strong
was
chief.
standing there. You're gonna stand there and say, absolutely not, I wanna
I
work
think-
for a strong chief with my boss right there?
Going forward, you can say, going forward, do you want the next chief to be a strong chief or a weak chief? You could say that to him. It's a fairly,
Mhm.
that's an uncontroversial, to me,
Okay.
question. Or else I wouldn't be talking about it right now.
Agreed.
right? So I think that's really important that you find out from
And that's fair.
the
And-
volunteers.
And that's fair, and I will do that, and that will be part of the presentation, because you know what, Tricia, at the end, I may talk to people, and I might talk myself right out of this
Right,
article,
yeah.
I don't know, but, you know, I can make a motion for all the things that should have had oversight, that did not, that went totally awry, that maybe if we were watching, it wouldn't be. But, you know, as you say, there might be folks that I can talk to that would be like, yeah, you know what, don't care, yep, want this, nope, want that.
Yeah.
So,
But the other thing, I also believe that there were a lot of really positive things about having a strong chief that people don't necessarily see on a day-to-day. I think putting those two departments together was really challenging.
Agreed.
And that was a really positive thing.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a lot more positive. You have a very cohesive working department right now, and that wasn't the case, 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
So I think, there's a lot of positive to be said for.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the
I
places
agree.
that comes from is
Yeah.
having one cohesive vision.
Right. And
And not,
having a leader.
not doing it by committee.
Yeah, and having a leader, a strong, they know who to talk to, they know who to go to, they're not worrying about something, too many irons in the fire,
correct.
No, we also have a weak police chief, though, who seems to be working out just
Police-
fine.
Yes, but police
They're
is
not
completely
the
different.
same.
They're not volunteers, they're full-time.
Right.
That's, the volunteers on the fire department, many of them have
I'm just talking
other
about the
jobs.
chief himself.
I know, but it's a completely different department. It's like comparing apples and oranges. You can't compare a volunteer fire department with part-time fire people that get up in the middle of the night for $22 an hour to
Well, I'm just
full-time
talking department heads, the two
unionized,
department
But it's
heads.
a different department. Unionized,
Mhm.
full-time, it's apples and oranges. You can't compare those. Weak chief, strong chief, it's different. There's much more fluidity in the fire department. There's people coming and going. He's got to make decisions, he's got to decide maybe for somebody who's going to work tomorrow night.
So
So,
here's a suggestion,
That's my
Peg.
2 cents.
That's good.
Appreciate it.
Plus, I don't want to have to get up and talk at town meeting, and I'm going to have to do that if this goes on the warrant.
Oh, I will stand and I will find you and I will stare you down. Tricia.
So do you want to wait till next week to,
Nope. I want to get this on, and then I will start reaching out to people.
Can I
Okay.
ask one more question?
Of course you may.
If the warrant closed on February 11th, how does that happen? If it's already closed, how does another
it's
article
closed
go on
to
the
submit, it's closed to submit articles from the departments.
So the
Okay.
rules, once again, count for everybody else, but not
No,
for
it's
us.
the law. The selectmen control the warrant.
Oh, I get
Yes.
it. But the deadline, supposedly deadlines are deadlines. I've been hearing that for weeks now, but not for us.
Well,
that's the
unfortunately,
case.
Situations arose. I mean, Mr. Bickford sat here a couple weeks ago and wanted to do this, and we shot him down because the information that he was providing was not valid. It was 10 to 14 years old. I'm not going to fight a 10 to 14-year-old case, but the stuff that has come up lately, it needs to be addressed. So Lisa made a motion. I'm going to second it.
Okay, anything else?
Nope. And I will rewrite the summary.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
And I am going to vote aye
Opposed.
because I want the people to decide.
I think Lisa said opposed.
Opposed.
Okay.
So then that goes back to the
Well, the one
to
question, before you
description.
started with this, all of this, my question was really, are there any articles that we want to include, or we could, I suppose, discuss this next week too? Any articles that we want to include that have not been included by capital planning or vice versa? Or we could discuss it next week.
I was good with everything that was on there.
At some point, you just want to get it to town council. So
Yeah.
I just try to smush it all together and give you a draft to look at.
And was there, do you know,
There was only
I don't
one
want to look through here,
placeholder.
this whole thing. The article on the annual
bags
town report,
Are in, the
the annual
one
town
you-
report one is in here,
Annual town report.
Dave Westerling's. I did not see it when I looked the last time,
have a
but that
copy.
wasn't today. Here,
It should be,
it should be in there. Because he had requested that.
Good.
annual town, yeah, page 8 here.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was included.
Yes, very good.
All right, So the timing is such that we need to send this to
Well,
town
the sooner
council
you
this
do-
week or next week?
Why don't you give it one more week? Let me smush together the non-controversial stuff
Okay.
and give it some order. Just so, because when we send it to town council and to FinCom for recommendations, so everyone needs a number
Yeah.
to reference the article. I mean, it's good to have the headers too.
Mm-hmm,
But, you know,
okay.
And will you need to take some out based on the capital plans committee?
That's the question.
Okay.
So like, I just want to make sure that.
Well, that's
it
my
jives.
question. That was my question. Were there
She-
anything that,
She was gonna go through
I-
and
they
compare
literally
because she
just
just got
handed
this.
it
yes, okay,
So, next week.
So-
The van I had already lined out because I figured that was coming.
Right.
So I've already put like a little reminder to myself to take that up. But I just got to look and make sure that you have.
well, I'm not
articles.
sure that I would like to take it out, so,
That's why I left it in there.
Right.
I knew that you hadn't discussed it yet. But I
Right.
just struck it out with a note that it's controversial between CPC and the selectmen.
and I
You
just
know.
don't understand why it has to be, it shouldn't be. But,
Well, you've already told state legislature that
We want
you
to try
want
and
that
get
as one of
money,
your top
yeah.
3 priorities for the coming fiscal year. So there's a little bit of disconnect. Not that the legislature even knows what your.
what's on your warrant?
No, right,
Right.
but is it a priority for the coming fiscal year or not? Also, I did hear George say that it was never actually voted by the COA, nor was the software. Holly put those in as placeholders to make sure that there was at least a spot on the warrant for
Do
it.
they
I don't
have
know
a
what
co- do
George's
they have a
point is,
council
if
on
he doesn't
aging
want either of
meeting
these things, or what.
Coming up? Do you know?
I could check.
I think it is. I don't remember when it is.
But that's an example of whipping something on that doesn't really maybe stick, because it was not voted.
I know that they were discussed.
The 26th is their next meeting.
But they didn't vote.
I don't.
In favor of
remember.
putting it
A
on.
lot of times they don't.
That's next Tuesday.
4 o'clock. So that's the day after your meeting. I said
Can
to
we
George, I
send,
said, if you don't want them on, then submit some request to take them off.
right.
Because as legal's reviewing, you can take them off.
Send them
Oh, yeah,
some,
you can
just send
take
them
them
an
off.
email to say,
Ask,
after your meeting, or during your meeting, could you please talk about this and
okay.
take a vote?
And what about the placeholder? So will we wait for that to come back for review?
Which one is that?
Which one is
It
that?
says, placeholder consideration POTUS solar array pilot
I
agreement.
think you're gonna take it off until you know the answer from town council.
Well,
So
that
it's-
was
so
gonna,
it-
that was one of
They,
my,
they gave that email back with an attachment and just kind of went wing, here you
and
figure
didn't
it
have
out.
numbers or anything, and who's negotiating this?
No one, I mean, it was Diane Peterson did it before, and Molly's not doing it. She's been very clear that she's not doing it, so.
Would Tim
No one's
Wheeler do
doing it.
anything about it?
I don't know.
I don't wanna volunteer, but, I was gonna suggest that KP Law do it.
Well,
should
I thought you
negotiate it.
did ask KP Law to do it, and they,
And they didn't do it. They
They
just
didn't do
gave us a format. They didn't negotiate
yep,
it.
so I don't know.
Ugh.
So yeah, because it says no summary yet drafted, no article in hand. It's just a blob.
I don't know, so.
Well,
I'm just leaving it there anyhow.
if
You know what
I,
mean?
if I have a conversation with Tim and see whether he has any ideas about how to handle this, and he doesn't,
Take it off.
do you all
I don't know if his
want to
family
either
had
take
counsel.
take the article off, or do you want
You're
to,
closing your opportunity
KP.
to negotiate a tax agreement in a timely manner with these people if you take it off.
We need to,
Although you may have a
Sort it
special
out.
town meeting warrant. I don't know if you do. It doesn't
So
seem
the
like.
next-
we need to try to sort it out.
okay, so do you want me to talk with Tim? If that doesn't work, if I don't get answers that we need, do I send it to KP Law and say, hey, you're negotiating this?
Great.
Yeah? No?
I don't know enough about it to say yes or no. I mean, if that's most logical, if no one's gonna stand up and talk about it, and KP Law is the one who's giving us the information, then obviously by default they win.
Okay. Well, I'll try and get a hold of Tim and see what I can do. All right.
There's a question I had
That was your only question you had?
for all, no, for these.
Oh, okay. And we'll send out an email to Council on Aging.
Yeah.
I think those were the two really questionable ones. So if we're moving on, vote for placement of unexpired term vacancies on the 2019 annual town election as follows. And I'll just say that the vacancies will be assessor vacancy 2 years, school committee vacancy 1 year, library trustee vacancy 2 years, trustee of trust funds vacancy 2 years. Vote, and do I hear a motion to place these unexpired term vacancies on the annual town election
So
as
moved.
follows?
So seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think we talked about the contract between CMRPC and the town of Berlin. So I have, well, I had two things, but we talked about the solar contract. I have one other thing that's new business. Mary had,
Did you sign, you signed that agreement?
no, not yet.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, are you talking about CMRPC?
Yeah.
No, I didn't sign it yet.
Oh, okay. just
Is it
wanted-
in here, or is it
Yeah, it's
out
blue and yellow
in-
tabs. It's sitting right on your left hand here. Between
Oh,
your
we
leaves.
did sign the blue and yellow tabs.
Did you?
Yes, we
Can
did.
I see that, just to make sure?
We've got some tabs in here to do too, though.
Okay, and then that's gonna hold for
I
June.
did check
Okay.
on the way through.
All right, cool. Yay. Stone did not sign this one.
She did it after I did.
Uh-huh. Stone.
I get distracted. Sorry.
I'm coming for you.
I know you are. I got cookies, I'll swap you.
Oh, I have Oreos.
Oh, you need milk.
Got it. Thank you.
Was there another one?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Coolio, thank you, ma'am.
It's really cold in here.
It is starting to get cold.
Would you like my hat?
It's so hot that my
Is that when the heat
is flat.
gets turned off? Like,
No, the setbacks are like really late, aren't they? Really early.
Okay, so I'll do my new business, then if anybody has any else, they can do it.
Okay.
Do you have some too?
I just have two.
Okay. So Mary had sent us all an email concerning the increased amount of work that is going on in this office, probably due to us doing a lot of things, accomplishing a lot of things, and that the fact that the licenses have doubled, and I mean, I've seen it when I come in, that she's even got the door shut sometimes because she's trying to get things done. And once, I believe that the window hours were like 9 to 2, were they
One.
not? 9 to 1.
But it really doesn't amount to
I know,
anything.
I know. So she was asking if we could relook at the selectmen's budget to increase the hours to 40 hours. And I would like to ask also personnel if they could determine whether this could be a salaried position of 40 hours. Mary was also suggesting that it might alleviate some of the things that we've had to, that she has on her plate, by having a part-time minutes clerk who could do the minutes and put them in a format so that we can have them approved like the following week or whatnot. And then the third request was for some professional development. And I would have to say that at some point we're going to have to do something, because the job entails just a lot more, just like every other office here. They have assistants, most of them, and I think we need one in this office. Anybody have any questions, comments?
No, I think it's valid. I mean, there are other departments that are asking for help because their workload is increasing, so truly, it's increasing all, which is good. It's a goodness issue to have, rather than the other way of, how do we keep Mary busy? We're keeping Mary way busy. I know I'm up at all hours, sending out emails, and sure enough, here comes a response from Mary. You know, and on the weekend too, so I don't have an issue with it.
My thought on this is the TA is going to start shortly and the workload is going to redistribute, and we don't know the impact of that yet. That we shouldn't be doing anything additional when we are adding over $100,000 in salaries already to this office. That we should wait until we see how the TA.
What if we
out.
don't put something in the budget and the budget for the TA doesn't pass? What are we gonna do
Or the
then?
alternative, you could budget for it, but not actually approve the change in the job to 40 hours a week until a town administrator gets here. My concern is I support 3, and I will be soon supporting a high-functioning 4. More so than, you know, a day-to-day demand physically in the office with more tasks and more things to do. There's going to be more to do in the coming year. And the town meeting already spoke that they want a town administrator, so I believe one is coming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why there's so many times that the CPC chair said that
If we're gonna get one, if we're
Well,
gonna
I don't know what that was about.
we're spending
but,
money, we better be getting
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
you're gonna have a 4th high-functioning person in this office who is gonna need support. And you have talked about the idea that the job is gonna morph into being an assistant to not an assistant to, but an admin support to the town administrator.
I still would like to wait and get recommendations after we see how things play out. I don't think we should be doing this right now.
I don't know that you're seeing how much there is to do. I spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday sitting all day long at my computer trying to catch up on all the things that we're trying to accomplish. You know, I can't wait for the town administrator. And I can imagine that's probably how Mary feels too.
Well, it's not a matter that I
It's
can't wait
fine.
for the town administrator. It's
I
more a matter
disagree.
of-
That's.
Okay.
The work volume is enormous. It is enormously changed in the past 5 years that I've been here, even with the creation of the inspector land use clerk, which is also expanded in hours. It is unreal how much more comes through this office.
And I think it has a lot to do with how we're trying to accomplish a
I
lot of
tried to
things.
quantify it with some numbers just to try to figure out how to show how much it's grown in 5 years, but everyone else on this floor is doubled up. I'm not looking to double up for the sake of doubling up. In fact, I'm not even proposing doubling up. I just say that, you know, in a lot of communities, they do have and if it's not even dedicated to the selectmen, sometimes you can have a minute clerk that floats and covers any number of different boards and committees. It might be answerable to you just for the sake of convenience, but maybe that's what happens for other boards and committees who need that assistance, if you ever wanted to go there. But this one meets every single week, and there doesn't seem to be a plan to stop meeting every week, even when you have a town administrator, at least initially. Eventually, it probably will drop back to every other week, like most towns do. But you're not gonna be doing that in the coming year. So if you budget for it, you'd have the money and the latitude to make those changes in the coming year, or
Right.
leave it unspent. But if you don't budget for it, you can't be ready for it.
You can't suddenly put it in.
Well, and if you put it in, very well, some of it may be cut anyway, you know, from FinCom, so, do I hear a motion to adjust the budget, therefore, I don't have a number, but,
Oh, I put numbers in the highlighted budget. Yep, that's it.
the
That
Board
would
of
be-
Selectmen?
Yep, you have in front of you with a green tab, or a red tab.
Red
Yeah,
tab.
right.
Yeah, red.
So what's the amount?
Well, it would change the payroll. And it would shift part-time wages, which is what I am, to full-time wages. It's already benefited, so there's really no net difference there, except for the chance
I
for
see, yeah.
overtime, which is not what I'm angling for. Don't budget for overtime. So, but see how the part-time wages would change from 55,992, which is what it is appropriated this year.
Mm-hmm.
and pushing it to a 40-hour week and putting it to full-time wages, not salary, unless you change your mind otherwise, and personnel suggests that. So I didn't put it as salary, I put it as full-time wages for discussion purposes. And but part-time wages would then be a minutes clerk, 4 hours a week times 52 weeks a year. Some weeks are gonna be more, some weeks are gonna be less. The summertime you have, and it's just to budget for it.
Okay.
Maybe some meetings that are so skimpy that I would just take the minutes at them.
Correct.
And that would be it. But here's a night that it started at 7, it's 9:15,
Mm-hmm.
and
I promise I only have 2 items to bring up. I'll keep it
I don't
quick.
care.
I
Keep
know.
going. I wish I got paid by the word.
I know, oh, God, you'd be a gazillionaire. So then we're looking at an increase in the budget of 16,172. Is that the number?
That's a minutes clerk and changing my present job from 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week.
All right.
And still keeping the 20-hour week contingency for hell weeks.
Okay, then I make a motion to change the selectmen budget to include a minutes clerk and to move the part-time wages to full-time with an expected increase amount of 16,172.
Second.
Okay, questions? No, I'm not really good at it. All right, let's vote.
Before you
right.
vote that, though, there's a discussion of professional development, and if you don't want that, then that
It's
has
here.
to be struck out. But I just want to make sure before you vote the budget.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
all right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All
One opposed.
opposed?
One opposed.
And again, we don't, we put it, we plan it, we use it, we don't use it, we don't use it. But it's there.
All right. Your turn.
I just had 2 quick ones, and one is just for my own edification. So on the volunteer form that came in for Mr.
Susie?
No, Rainville, he had also checked off COA driver. It's just a question, do we do background checks on driving records?
Nope.
No, we do. We
No.
do Cory checks, don't we?
Yeah, we don't, and the police department can do it.
So do we?
We do not do driving records, and we do not ask them for physical examinations as is as expected of a desk worker. So someone driving the van and helping elderly people on and off and manipulating a wheelchair through the snow and whatever.
This is why we've
No
been
physical.
asking for policies and procedures.
So maybe this is just a table one that I bring up in a couple months and we throw it back on the table? To see what we can do
Well,
about that?
Unless you want the police chief to do those checks for you.
Yeah, but again, it's, what do you do with all the people that have gone before?
They also should be checked.
So
Mine
can you
would
go-
want
can you
to
go
check-
backwards?
Yes, you
Probably
can always
yearly, right?
institute.
GVW.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you do that
minimum.
yearly?
Yeah, just like Cory, you're doing annually. And the other problem is the tracking of when it's time to redo a Cory. I believe I'm seeing the Corys come back annually,
Okay.
but the driving checks should also be done annually. Is it the selectman's office to track volunteers that we know nothing about? Some of them are work off, some of them are volunteers.
So should this maybe just go to, the names go to the police chief to have this done?
Yes.
All right.
Who's going to send them to the police chief to get
I
done?
think this is a bigger thing than we can,
Yeah,
we
it's
can
just-
manage
it's not just-
tonight. This is
Okay.
not,
Yeah.
this
Alright.
is part of
But
that
you're right
whole
on
thing
it.
that we've been trying to tackle and not
Are
having
you still
Okay.
incredible
attending
luck.
the Council on
Um,
Aging meetings?
I try to,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, I'll
I'm
hang
gonna
on
try
to it.
go on Tuesday.
Okay,
The
let us
last-
know.
Yeah. the last
Update
little
us.
bit here, so
Alright.
a little bit.
And the
What's
last,
Oh, I've had a few weeks, as you know.
Okay.
and
Yes.
the last one that I had was an email that I had forwarded to the 3 of you regarding Stinky Farm and the rats that are becoming a problem with residents of the town. And I know there's not a lot we can do about it, that SA Farms is in Northborough, and I know that you've been in touch with them and in contact with them, and DEP is all over them. But the, and I can't remember her name, specifically reached out to me to say, now I have rats and I have a farm, and I'm extremely concerned that people are gonna be like, oh, yeah,
She was
rats,
here
I'm
earlier.
out.
She was here earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can we do? Can we do?
I think they're trying to enforce. I think there's very little that we can do. That they are doing their best to enforce. He's got multiple
I know. Every
things on him.
week there's
It's-
an article.
My hope is that it's going to come to a head, but it's in Northborough.
Yeah.
There's
know.
I mean, I could call and ask the Northborough Town Administrator for any kind of update that he could
Maybe.
give me.
Yeah.
That might help as far as communication with
It
people.
looked like they're enforcing now. They're just not. It's being appealed. You
Yeah.
can't. When it's,
Correct.
you have to wait for it to go through the process.
And she's just
And
concerned
it
about her
stinks.
business.
And
I
there's.
know. All right, maybe you can just reach out and say, hey, we're starting to get a concern from a few, from a Berlin resident
Or
regarding
maybe he
impact
can
to our
let me
business.
know what they're doing,
Yeah,
and that would help.
okay. All right, those are my two. Everything else got checked off in the meeting.
All right. Lisa, do you have anything?
Nope.
All right. No executive session this evening, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Quick question
adjourn.
before you close?
Oh,
Did I miss out on the discussion that was about me?
it was nothing about you. It was about
About the position?
fire marshal. Fire marshal.
Because I was here when it was supposed to go in order. So did it get taken out of order, or?
We actually did take it out of order. We talked about it earlier as we were trying to wait for the time for our appointments. The appointments have to be at a certain time.
Mhm.
And we basically, I think, shared disappointment that this had to happen. And we're still waiting to get some advice from KP Law. However, I've been told I can contact our other counsel that we use occasionally to find out, what's our responsibility, basically.
Okay.
So it really
Short.
wasn't very, it was
It
very
wasn't,
short.
wasn't that long.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
I think Lisa made a motion, I seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Mr. Bradley.